Welcome, low ego action heroes. It's Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and today is January 13, 2021, and it's time for episode 92 of our live stream podcast, Unseen Steps to a UX Career. And I'm happy to welcome our guest today, who you may have seen back in episode 60. Oh, it seems so long ago, but he was really there back in episode 60. It is Scott Smallman from the UK. And Scott, please start out by spelling your name and telling everybody who the heck you are.
Hi, Debbie. Yeah, Scott Smallman, SCOTTSMALLMAN. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am a user experience lead at Karmarama here in the UK, in London, and I've been working in kind of UX, web design, product for the last kind of 12 to 14 years.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. And so we're here today to talk about some of the, we talked about the unseen steps of the UX career. And I know you and I came up with the idea for this podcast when we probably ended up colliding on one of many LinkedIn conversations about weird stuff that people seem to say to juniors or try to convince juniors of. And I think the first thing I think maybe we should do is maybe share a little bit of the story you were sharing with me before we started, so people can know a little bit about some of your journey into your career and some of where you got it right and some of where you got it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always had a kind of passion for technology and IT. I actually doubled with drama and theatre studies before I went to university. So I had a real, acting bug, loved being on the stage, talking to people, taking on personas, kind of getting into characters, and then realised that actually I cared. Went to university in Middlesbrough in Teesside, studied web and multimedia design, and as I was doing that course, we were being taught things like ActionScript, HTML, JavaScript, PHP. But then when I was kind of looking into more around, well, how do I actually make this for people who maybe use screen readers or people who, have issues with technology? And that opened a massive gate for me. I graduated with a first class honours degree by focusing my kind of portfolio and dissertation on Agile versus waterfall in terms of a project. Again, reading back now, it's terrible, but at the time, it made sense in terms of arguing the differences between just going and building a website versus understanding your users, understanding their needs and pain points, and just kind of following those practices. For me, I did very well. I came out, as I said, with a first class honours degree. I won 2 awards for my dissertation, and I got a job straight out of university. It's the story that people tell you. Go to uni, get a degree, get a good job. My issue, and the thing that I've learned over the years, is it's just there's always a stepping stone to the next journey. That's the most important step, is the next one. And I ended up falling into a job as a software engineer because I can be taught to code. I already cared about who I was designing for. I understood a bit about Agile and the manifesto. And the case was like, okay, we can teach you front-end development, add that to your skill set. And I hated it. I wasn't very good at it. I found it boring. And it took me on this journey of going from an in-house design team to a startup to consultancy, freelance. And over the last 2 years, I've been in agency at Karmarama. And that journey has been quite a long one to get into that kind of UX. My first role, as I said, was a software engineer with kind of a UX flavor to it. I think you're now seeing people call it a UX developer role, which is horrendous. And we'll get into that, I'm sure, later. But for me to actually call myself a UX designer took almost 2 or 3 years of going around the houses, learning about the skill sets in the digital team, learning of how I can take these frameworks and fundamentals and apply them to everyday work. So although I'm as a lead now, my journey wasn't as straightforward as going to university, getting a degree, and then getting a job.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And we already have someone in the chat room saying, same issue I'm facing these days. So it sounds like people are identifying with your story. When we think about the way that juniors learn right now, there's boot camps in universities and online courses and private programs. Do you have any preferences or advice to people on which one of these are the better way to go?
So I can talk about my experiences of university and going the kind of traditional academic route. Knowing that we were going to have this conversation, because obviously we talked about it before Christmas, I did what any kind of UX designer would do. I did research. I spoke to people who've done some boot camps. I spoke to people who've actually taught or lectured in them, have gone and kind of been guest speakers, and just tried to get an understanding of where people are, why they join them, why they come out, and versus the academic route. And there is no true answer in terms of the right way. I think, first of all, it comes down to what kind of setting do you learn in educationally? Are you more of a structured learner that needs, steps and processes and kind of gates? Are you someone who's a bit more free flowing, who's self-motivated, that can teach themselves? I think whatever path you take, you're always learning. As I said, I've been kind of in and around UX and design for the last kind of 15 years now, but I'm still learning. I'm still teaching myself. I did a Coursera course in the summer during lockdown. I studied social psychology.
Yay.
I realized that I had a gap in my understanding. I was working with some semioticians, some ethnographic researchers, and was like, I understand the principles, but I want to understand a little bit more about why you're coming up with these research methods. And so I did that, and I'm still learning. I'm doing some more, but I think the crux of it, when it comes to answer your question, is what's the best way for you to start and then get your foot in the door. And I think, great research technique from last year I learned, the foot in the door technique. It's what is going to help you start your journey. And I think that's the key thing. Is it's not about being job ready. It's about what's your passion, why do you want to do something, and how are you going to start that journey.
But then I think ultimately you kind of have to be job ready. I mean, what you're saying sounds like it should come first. And then when you find that passion, maybe focus in on something and work towards getting job ready for that? Or am I misunderstanding it?
I think there's a balance. It comes on, if we take the bootcamp analogy, for example, that day one for you could be a different day one for someone else. Yes, you're all starting on the same day, but there are people who, and I think this is where some people kind of get misled by certain kind of opportunities, which is you could be doing your first day on that course with someone who's already got 10 years experience, industry experience in maybe product management or in a business analysis, or actually just in a certain sector that they're working in. So for someone who's kind of maybe fresh into their career, any career, who's then transitioning, or someone, there's that balance between what are you trying to learn. If it's trying to understand if it's your passion or if you want to get into it, then yeah, some things like that are good. But to your point around being job ready, there is a level now. And I think what's happening is as UX is maturing and is becoming more of an industry standard and expectation, the stakes are being raised because of the volume of applicants.
Right. And we have a wild volume of applicants, mostly because they're coming out of the boot camps and the universities and some self-study, and that's a whole other topic. So let me ask you more about learning styles. You see all kinds of different things popping up on social media and LinkedIn and other things, say, learn by teaching and learn by thising and learn by whatevering. What do you suggest for, can you learn by teaching? Should you learn by doing? Should you learn by reading? What's the best way to go, especially for someone starting out?
Well, I think, first of all, you can't learn by teaching. I think I was told this a couple of years ago. I was like, okay, how do I get to the next level? How do I start to progress in my career? They're like, oh, you need to start teaching. Like, yeah, but teaching what? And the case was, well, go learn an analytics course and then teach it to the rest of the department. I was like, but I don't know analytics. That's not my skill set. And so the best way to start for me, is observing. I'm a massive, I love to watch people. I love to see how people do things, ask questions. I bore people to death with kind of various questions and ideas. But for me, it's kind of, if I want to learn something, it's find out who's doing it and doing it well, seeing if I can observe them, listen to them, talk to them, read what they were reading, kind of obviously do your due diligence and make sure that person actually knows what they're teaching. Don't just get someone who has done a course or done something, but
check them out on LinkedIn.
Check them out on LinkedIn, do your research, I think that's the key thing as a side bet, is treat your career as if it's a UX product.
Yay.
Or a product. do your research, self-invest, audit yourself, your skill set, and find where the gaps are. I have a massive bookshelf of reading. Some books I have because they're reminders of bad reading experiences. Some are good things I go back to. There's different ways to learn, and eventually what it has to become is learn by doing and practicing. When you're taught to spell as a child, in the UK it's look, cover, write, check. You look at a word, you read it, you write it, you check your answers and check your spelling. If you get it wrong, how did you get it wrong? Learn from it. And I think it's a case of, all through education, you have someone there for you, and teachers and mentors, and there's always someone to guide you and make sure that you have guardrails. What we're seeing at the moment in the industry is there's no guardrails, there's salesmen, and there's people trying to get people into this industry doing things. And that's across, every kind of thing, whether it be universities and the astronomical fees in the UK at the moment, boot camps, apprenticeships. Everyone's trying to get someone to do something. We just need to be, strategic in ourselves, in our development, and put our own thinking hats on and work out whether or not this is something we should be doing, if we have either the passion, a natural talent, or we have the aptitude to actually really work hard to learn it.
Yeah, thanks for all that. And just a reminder, everybody who's watching live, please ask your questions if you have any. We're happy to take them. And of course, if you're in YouTube, usability test that subscribe button. Join us and tell the algorithm this wasn't so bad. Please empathize with the like button as well. So I wanted to ask about, I feel like not a week goes by on LinkedIn without me seeing a bootcamp graduate posting to LinkedIn that they are upset or angry or discouraged or insert negative emotion here, that they graduated X months ago and they still haven't been able to get a job. It doesn't look like anybody wants to give them a chance. And clearly there is gatekeeping in UX. What do you tend, if anything, what would you say? What if this person? I tend to not respond to those because I don't want it to look like I'm fighting them, because they're writing that to get likes and support and hugs and love and agreement. But if you could speak to those people anonymously now, what would be your response to that?
Mine would be, firstly, ask yourselves why you have this opinion or attitude. The key thing I would say to yourself, and what I always get anyone from my team that joins me or yearly reviews or anyone I'm mentoring, is audit yourself. Audit is your skill set. Be reflective. If again, it comes back to treat your career and yourself as a user experience, to make sure that if you do something and it fails, why did you fail? At the start of your career, you're going to make more mistakes and fail more than so you're successful. But it's how you learn from those mistakes and how you grow from them that is the important thing. I always ask a lot of people, when's the last time you failed at something? Because that's where you learn your biggest lessons, whether it be life or career. You don't learn from being successful. Right. You might get some kind of, kudos, or you might learn something positive, but it's how you react to those failures that is really where you grow your career.
Yeah, I have so many questions lined up for you, but we've got our first question from the LinkedIn chat from Vivian. Hi, Vivian. And Vivian asks, how do you know when you're job ready? Now, I have some ideas there, but what would you say? How do you know when you're job ready? You can't just take a single slice of this, can you? Because you have to have some confidence without an ego. There is a balancing act, but you need to have, as I said, if you've audited yourself and you feel fairly confident, you have some work or some kind of idea. It depends on what you're applying for. If you're a graduate or an entry level position who's maybe just finished university, whether that be degree or masters, or has done a boot camp or any kind of other education route, what level are you going for? If you're saying, you know what, I'm going to start at the bottom, get an internship and learn, just be there to absorb and learn from people, then yeah, you could be job ready. If you're coming, whether it be from a career change or, again, you've done a master's, so you think, oh, I've got 2-3 years of research experience in my master's or PhD,
do you have an actual, career and business experience, or is that just pure academic? So would you be going for a midweight role? Would you be going for an entry role again? And
Right.
it's that sometimes, and this is where a lot of people differ, is do you just blanket fire applications, or do you actually try to be more personable and go and target people? If there's a company you're interested in, or a business idea, or a sector, reaching out to people. Most jobs are not, advertised. Sometimes it's a case of, I could be looking for a midweight, but really it could be a senior or a lead, or someone who steps up or comes in at a different level. If you're, as I said, with that entry level piece, if you are entry level, it's a case of maybe getting yourself out there, networking, speaking to people, and just applying for 1 or 2 jobs just to get some critical feedback. Because it could be that you are ready. If you're someone who's maybe a little bit more experienced or has spent a few more years in industry, then you need to say, okay, what is this job requesting of me? What is the skill set I have? Can I do these things? Now, we know that, and it's another conversation, another day, but we know job specs are asking for ridiculous amounts of things from people. But can you do at least some of those things? If there's a core function of, say, UX design, can you wireframe? Can you prototype? Can you think critically? Most of the time when it's a kind of a junior intern role, I'm looking for a little bit of talent, some, enthusiasm, excitement, passion. I'm looking for more of a personal skill set than I am a actual, can you do the role? We can teach certain things if someone has the natural, aptitude towards it or passion towards UX. It's that balancing act between, are you going to be there to learn how to wireframe and use a certain product, or are you there to actually learn the fundamentals behind it?
Yeah, and I think one of the, in addition to what you said, I think since self-assessment is sometimes difficult, how do I know when I'm a fantastic opera singer? Oh, I am. Sometimes self-assessment is not great. Just watch American Idol. But I think that if people can get some appointments with mentors or coaches who can look at your portfolio and look at your work or do a mock interview with you, they will be able to point out where, assuming they're not just being cheerleaders, they will be able to point out where you might not be ready or where you might not get that interview. And I think looking at yourself and what Scott said, comparing yourself to the job description is a good start. But I would also say, see if you can get a mentor to take a look at your work and go, oh, this might be why you're not getting interviews. Yikes! Because I've seen those and I've been like, oh yikes! Oh, go ahead. You look like you're going to say.
Yeah,
something.
I was going to say, don't look for cheerleaders, like you said. Look for people who are going to critique you and push you and want the best for you, not just happily.
Yeah, that I say that all the time. Vishal in YouTube says, I would love to see more apprenticeships. As a recent graduate, I don't qualify for many internships because I don't have 2 to 3 years of UX experience that some junior positions ask for. So obviously we have a problem right now where a lot of companies, even for an internship, are looking for a year or more of experience. This ends up being a puzzle and a paradox where you can't get an internship because you haven't had real work experience. I saw one today and it was for an internship and it said, your portfolio must show 3 to 5 different projects. And I was like, I think you're a mid-level already. Why is this an internship? What are your opinions on this? And what do you think can help people build the bridge between whatever education they've had and that first internship, apprenticeship, or junior role?
I think it's a really tough one, especially here in the UK, because that business maturity in terms of what UX is, we're slowly starting to see mids become seniors, seniors become leads getting into those director and kind of, seat at the table. And that's a good thing, but also making sure that it's not people raising themselves too quickly to make the right decisions. I think someone who's asking for 1 to 2 years experience, that's not an intern to me. That is a graduate, entry level, sometimes even mid, if it's someone who's got some actual business experience.
Right.
An internship is someone who is there to purely learn and to absorb and to basically test the waters and say, is this really for me? Is this what I expect? And we had this discussion internally around, Karma Armor has the Karma Cadets, which is an internship program, which allows them to explore agency life and the communication side of the business and advertising. Whereas in creative products where I sit, we're looking more into, well, actually, how do we get juniors and graduates in who have that kind of very early fundamentals, layers that we can start to build upon. And I think that's the difference. Do you have some core competencies and components that we can say, you know what, we can build upon these foundations you've laid. We're not building them in sand, we're building them in good sturdiness that we can, help you raise that experience and become a midweight or a senior, whatever your career decides to be.
Yeah, thank you for that. I say the same things, and I'm still working on my HR training program where I'm going to try to set the world straight. But, I have these big dreams of changing the world, which reminds me of another thing that you and I had wanted to talk about, which was there is so much clickbait out there. There are so many YouTube videos and Medium articles that say, get a UX job without any qualifications, or 2, 3, 4, 5 easy steps to getting your first UX job. Obviously, I don't have any of those in front of me right now, but what would you say to the people who are reading those articles or watching those videos and are thinking, okay, I'm just going to do these easy steps. Where's my job?
I think it's, the first thing I would say, and making sure you're not falling foul, is, are they trying to sell me something? Are they trying to gain something from me?
Right.
It's that initial, clickbait easy steps is when people try to simplify and say, yeah, there's 5 steps. Between step 1 and step 2, there's normally 10. There's normally like an infinite amount. But I think the key thing is it's contextual to you. If I say, it's 5 steps to become a UX designer, I don't know anything about you or your experience. In terms of, if we think of like progress indicators as a UX design pattern, that used to be everywhere. You're going to do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. As we've matured and as kind of, best practice has gone, interaction patterns are highly used nowadays, and there's a reason for that. Branching logic and kind of understanding how people progress and it being contextual to the user and to you is very critical. So, although you may only have 5 steps laid out in front of you, you might not even be starting at step 1. You might be behind someone else, or you might be 2 steps ahead. Always got to be critical and think, where am I in my career? Where are my passions? What do I need to do to get that? And again, like you said, Debbie, if you don't know, it's okay. Find a mentor, find someone on LinkedIn. There are people out there like myself, like Debbie, like many others who are very passionate about helping people, talking to people. It helps me as a experience manager, as someone who wants to grow my team, wants people to come in, learn and establish themselves. I need to know who's out there. I need to know the people who are passionate and not here for a payday. I want to help people to really just be excited about what we do and how we do it and why we do it. So I think, again, like I said earlier, if you're hiring, if you're interviewing for a junior grad level, it's not so much about a portfolio of work. It's nice if you've got some stuff, but I'm hiring you because of what you can bring to the table and the opportunity of maybe we can work together and maybe learn from each other.
And it sounds like there's a bit of a hidden message in there, because whenever I see some of these complaints on LinkedIn or some of the YouTube comments I get and some other things, it's always, where is my job? I was supposed to get a job. The boot camp promised me a job. Where is my job? There must be gatekeeping or, I don't know, an international conspiracy. Where is my? And why won't someone give me a chance? And what I think you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is it's not so much about that as it is you've got to be able to show what you can bring to the company, not what you want to take from the company, but what you can bring to the company. Maybe speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think, when you're preparing for a job interview, a lot of people say, here are the questions you need to ask. You should be saying, what can the company do for you? And that's right. It is a relationship. It's give and take. You need to make sure that you can grow and thrive and be your, best self and your true self. But at the same time, what are they going to, what are we going to gain? Obviously, if we're being completely honest, when you have someone who's at the entry level position, especially in agency or consultancy world, you're not going to be billable to a client. And as you become more experienced and more senior, then that comes. But that's a good thing, because we want to grow people. We want people to be able to come in and do it. I think, and this is just my experience, because I had this attitude when I came out of university. So it's not just boot camps, it's universities too. You are built up that you are the finished article. You are perfect. You are amazing. You can go and get that job. Well, you can go and get a job, but is it the right job for you? Is it going to help you grow and succeed? I had to learn the hard way, where I basically fell and faltered because I thought I was done. I thought I had the degree, I had the job, I had the title, I was doing the work, but actually I wasn't learning. At the time, I didn't have a UX manager, I didn't have a mentor. I was 2 years into my career, and I ended up leaving that job because I wasn't successful. I failed. And I had to take a long, hard look at myself and go, actually, you know what? It's the first time in the last kind of 4 or 5 years I failed in terms of doing stuff that I loved and was passionate about. And I had to really think, is this right for me? What do I need to do to be better? And where can I actually grow? And, I interviewed at a number of companies, and I found somewhere that I ended up staying for almost 6 years, because they had that, they had senior UXers, they had lead UXers, they had, people that I could work with. Mentors don't just have to be someone in your discipline. I've had copywriters that are mentors, art directors, business analysts, CTOs. Anyone that you can learn to help you grow is a mentor. And I think that's really important when you're trying to develop both your soft skills and your, as your career, but also your professional and your specialism, if you do decide to specialize. If you don't, that's also okay. But what is it about you?
Yeah, and I know we wanted to talk about specializing, but first we have a long comment from a friend of the show, Solomon, in the LinkedIn chat. So I'm going to read that. And while I read that, I'm going to put this up and remind everybody, please, if you're on YouTube, subscribe and press like. That helps the algorithm. That's all I can ask for. And by the way, I've chosen to not monetize my videos. If any of you see an ad on the videos, will you please tell me, because you shouldn't be seeing ads on my videos. Quick note. Okay, Solomon says, here's something I discovered and want to share with anyone looking for work. The competition for design jobs is fierce. You're competing with people that graduated before you, after you, seniors with years of XP, etc. I think XP would be experience. I don't think they mean extreme programming experience. Research and identify the people getting hired and their case studies. Get a sense of the kind of skills and knowledge that got them hired at the organization where you want to work, and see if you can reflect the same in your portfolio. Of course, meeting a UX person at a networking event or something like that, connecting with them in person will go a long way in helping you get there. Thank you, Solomon. It sounds like something, a cousin of something I've told people, which is like reverse engineer for the job you want. Like, instead of asking me, am I qualified, go look at job descriptions for jobs you want and see how well you meet those requirements. And here he's saying, find the people who got the jobs, maybe try to track down their portfolios and see what kind of work they must have showcased to get the job. Or how do you take what Solomon is saying, or what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think anything you can do to broaden your horizon, make new connections, and just learn. As I said, you've always got to be learning. You've always got to be growing as a professional and as a person. So meeting new people, learning different ways and techniques is always critical. And yeah, I think when it comes to the portfolios, it's a tricky subject, because a lot of people, and it's that really hard thing around, we were talking about generalization of, the hybrid UX UI roles, and is that a good thing to go down versus people's portfolios. You get people saying, oh, you should go and reverse engineer Google, or go reverse engineer Spotify or YouTube. And you know what? You could do that if you want to show a different interface design. But if you're trying to become a UX researcher or a UX designer, do you understand the business needs? Do you understand the user needs? What can you actually do that's different and showcases value and improvement? So I personally don't agree with that. I don't think it's the right thing to do for your portfolio. I think there's a number of great charities out there that can use UX help, that can use people. The UN has a global website where you can get involved and do things like that, or even just local places. You know, it's very privileged of me to say go and do work for free. That's not what I'm saying. But if you have some free time or some downtime, go and see if you can help out or do something that kind of helps you grow as a person or as a practitioner.
And I always say, make sure you've got a mentor or coach to hover over you, because you don't want to guess at this work. The cancer charity does not want work guessed at. The cancer charity needs work done well. So please make sure you are getting some help there. Now, we're talking about generalist, specialist, unicorn. And before I ask you about that, I want to read to everybody. I wrote a Medium article in response to something Jared Spool had posted. And yes, you can all take a drink because I said Jared Spool. I strongly dislike him, and so we're huge enemies. But he had put out something claiming there were 5 easy. It was called. He had put up a post, "Becoming a Unicorn in 5 Easy Steps." So I figured, wow, a unicorn in 5 easy steps. What might these be? So I looked up his article, and here were his 5 steps. And this will also speak to what we were saying before. Step one. Learn everything you can about a new skill. Okay, well, that sounds like months and years and a lot of money. He says, learn everything you can, go to conferences, learn everything, take courses. Okay, that doesn't sound like one step. It's like what Scott said before. Like that's 10 steps masquerading as one. And then he says, step 2, practice, practice, practice. And then he says, deconstruct what others have done. You should look at good UX work and somehow be able to know what they did to make that good UX work. And my thought was, I don't see how you can do that. I can't look at someone's personas and know how they got there. Step 4, solicit feedback. And step 5, teach it to someone else. Because Spool says you don't really learn something until you teach it to someone else, which I know we just burned to the ground. So knowing that this was 5 easy steps to becoming a unicorn, Scott, what's your opinion on, especially for newbies and juniors, should they be moving towards being that jack of all trades generalist unicorn? Do you recommend specialization? What's your advice?
Well, firstly, as I said, 15 years in, I'm still not a unicorn. I don't think I ever will be, or want to be honest. I think if we take it from each progressional level, so if you're an entry level, junior, mid, starting your career, some people say that it's easier to get a job or to be a kind of generalist unicorn, whatever you want to kind of call it, because you kind of touch different areas. If you can get a job where you can do a little bit of research, a little bit of UX, a little bit of design, a little bit of visual, maybe some BA, Scrum, whatever the skill set thereafter is, if you can do any of that, then that's great. I think it's important to have an appreciation of the team you're working with, their skill sets, their pain points and needs, and what their kind of day-to-day looks like and how you work with them. But when you start to say, you know what, I'm going to be a unicorn or a specialist in multiple areas, you start getting away from, the T-shape that people kind of talk about, and you start to say, well, I'm E-shaped. I had someone say to me, oh, I'm E-shaped once before. Now, what does E-shaped mean? And they said, well, I kind of go along this line and I've got 3 different areas that I'm super specialized in. I don't think anyone can call themselves a specialist truly unless you've been doing something for a very, very long time. And I'm talking 2 or 3 decades. Like, to be a true specialist in something, again, it's not all about time, it's about quality. But if you want to go down that route and say, you know what, I am a unicorn, I can do a bit of design, a bit of research, a bit of coding, that's okay. But are you, one, taking away the job from someone else who can probably do it maybe a little bit quicker, a little bit better, a little bit faster? Better is obviously the key there. Or is it also taken away from something that you want to do? I had a job where my job title was user experience business analyst. And I basically was in a very small team. I was the Scrum Master. I wrote the acceptance criteria. I did the BDD cucumber scripting. I did the wireframe design. and I supported the dev team in terms of estimation and story points because I had a little bit of an understanding of front-end dev. Now, what that meant was, yeah, I could touch, end to end for the product, and I could support the VP of product, but I never had time to actually fully explore different ways of solving a problem. At that point in my career, I couldn't do any research. I had no budget, I had no time, and no one supported me in doing that. I ended up designing something, going, that works. That
I hope it's okay.
Solves the problem. Hope it's okay. We'll test it maybe in optimization later with whatever we used at the time. Whereas if I'd just been in the UX design role, especially at that point in my career, I could have tried different options, tried different, approaches, saw what worked, saw what didn't work, had time to kind of evolve, fully immerse myself in the problem and the solution I was trying to deal with, rather than just go, here's a wireframe, here's the acceptance criteria, go build it. And I think especially when you're starting out, you don't know what's right or wrong. Like you said, Debbie, you have to rely on those who are more experienced around you to kind of guide you and to say, that's great, that needs some help. Or you just get stuck. And that's what can happen. You can hit a ceiling. As best intentions as you are, as talented as you are, if you don't have the right support and structure and the foundations in what you're doing, you'll get to a point in your career or your life where you'll go, I'm not sure what I'm doing, why I'm doing this, how do I grow, where do I go next?
And then you get imposter syndrome.
Which is, this happened to me. I went through a phase. I went through 9 months of working on a client project. I was basically acting as a consultant, doing some UX work. I was doing the research, supporting their internal team, which I absolutely loved doing, that kind of enablement piece. But then I was like, okay, I'm never going to be a true specialist in the sense of that very thin vertical UX design, because I think there are better designers out there. I'm more accustomed to the strategic side, or to kind of supporting the team around me and making them the best possible. So the advice I was given was, well, go learn Google Analytics. Go learn another skill. I was like, well, how does that make me better at UX design?
Right.
And coming up with the best solution possible? So it's great, as I said, it's great to have all of these different, skill sets and appreciations. But if that's not your job, work with the people that can support that.
And I try to remind people that while job descriptions right now are a total car crash and they're a mess and they're asking for 9,000 skills and we have to fix that and I'll do what I can, just remember that hypothetically, if they're asking for a certain skill, they might try to assess if you're any good at that. I have gotten jobs. I remember getting a job to do some actual prototyping for a well-known bank in America. And they said, you're going to be the third person working on this prototype. And I said, oh, sounds like you have a story. And they said, yeah, we hired someone who put Acture on their resume or CV. And they got here and we showed them what we needed. And they messed around for a week or whatever. And it turned out they couldn't build it. And so we fired them and we brought in somebody else who had Acture on their CV. And we gave them this prototype. And they messed around for a week or two and they couldn't build it. And we fired them. And then we just figured we'd bring in you. And we've budgeted for 200 hours. Do you think you can do it? And I did the whole project in 63. And I just use that as a story, not to be like, yay me, but to be like, remember, you think you're throwing Acture and analytics and all these things on your CV or resume. Someone might actually check. You might actually have to do this at your job. If you are not at least halfway skilled at this, you could get fired. You could be accused of lying. So I do you have a thought or comment on this, where people like list all these tools and things on their CVs and they, they might have worked on it for a few hours?
Yeah, I think there's a big, and it's a negative thing that we need to deal with. And I know that you're going to be talking to a recruiter soon, who I'm a big fan of as a great guy. But there is a key issue around buzzwords and keywords to, like you said, the whole process is wrong. You have to get certain words on your CV. LinkedIn do it. They tell you, actually, you're 75% suitable for this role. Well, how do you know?
Right.
And it's a case of, well, and something I'm seeing is someone will do something, they'll do it once, maybe they'll go to a course, or they'll read about it, it goes on the CV. And this is another bit of portfolio advice for people at any level. If you do something or you put something in your portfolio, I don't just want to see what you did. I want to see why you did it. Why did you choose that methodology? Why did you choose that approach? What was the success or failure of that? That's more important to me than just the put in and say you did personas or you did a service design blueprint.
Right.
It's great that you've got that exposure, but if I'm bringing someone in to do a very specific ask, it's because we have defined there is a need for that artifact or that outcome. We always talk about outcomes over outputs. It's very key that we focus on delivering the right thing, not just something tangible like a pretty picture or a nice blueprint. So if you say you can do that, you're being brought in because we know that you can deliver that. It's not a case of, oh, I have an interest in it or I have done it before once. Right. It's the same with anything, is do something, do it again, learn from it, do it again. Don't put it on your CV if you do it once or you're exposed to it, like you said.
Yeah, because you could be held accountable for that, and that could burn a bridge pretty fast. And I also remind people, especially the juniors, that anything you've got on your CV or your portfolio is fair game during an interview. I could ask you, what's your process for that? I could ask you why you did that versus something else. I could ask you, tell me the story of exactly what happened during this project. If you don't have, if I could say, tell me why you made an empathy map. If you don't have good answers and good reasons for these things, it's going to fall apart really fast, because people say, oh, what should I be able to say in an interview? You should be able to speak intelligently to your work and your processes. What would you add to that, Scott? What do people need to be able to do well in an interview?
I think, depending on the level, it's that passionate storytelling aspect. Like you absolutely said, you're absolutely spot on, is if you have said, I am proficient in qualitative user research, okay, great. Talk me through your process. Talk me through the pitfalls of certain techniques or why you would use a certain situation. And I'd give you a scenario. And I'd say, look, we did this project once. Here was the situation. What would you have done differently? Because I've retrospectively looked at what worked and what didn't. So it's about making sure that you can, eloquently explain yourself, have an understanding. If you're a little bit more junior, then you might not have that, why it was used. But I'd expect you to kind of explain what you learned from it or understand, what you would do differently next time. That critical analysis is so important, especially when starting out, is you don't want to get into a cookie cutter situation where you follow, and this is a big key thing of that framework. It's great to have frameworks, it's great to have processes. And I know in UX we are, terrible for having a 5-step plan or having kind of, this is, build, measure, learn, define, explore, all the different stages, whatever you want to throw it up as, fine. But you don't ever follow. I can't, in all the years I've worked on a project, I think I've probably done one end-to-end project where I started in the discovery phase and got all the way to actual optimization. So you could be coming in at a point where there's been 2 years worth of research done. It could be good, it could be not good. But you've got to take what you've got, explore it, look at the pros and cons, the pitfalls, the black holes, take what you can from it, and then do the next phase. You could be coming into a product that's 10 years old and you need to optimize it and go and do a full exploratory research phase. It's always about the what, the how, and the why. So regardless of what level you're at, being able to talk around kind of your experiences and why you did something or what you did is so critically important. You may not fully understand different methods if you're a little bit more junior or kind of midweight, but that's okay, because that's the point of having leads and people who experience and mentors around you, because then we can suggest different ways and different methods to try.
Yeah, and thank you for that. Another thing I want to add is also, I find sometimes when I look at portfolios that people use the word agile incorrectly. And I think that is a red flag, and that could keep you from getting an interview. Remember, if I'm interviewing you and this is an agile organization, I can say, tell me how you tend to work in an agile organization or agile process. If you don't have a good answer for that, you're going to look weird. So it's not that I want people to be over-rehearsrsed with these answers. Don't memorize answers, then you end up a robot. But you should know the answer to that. I feel like I keep saying this. I want to pull up, just for my own enjoyment, the seven steps UX. Somebody is selling a 7-step UX. what was this? Um,
I saw
we
this,
won't
yeah.
we won't name names, but we'll say someone is selling a course. Learn how to get started in UX design and become a UX designer. This will take you through the process from beginner to getting a job. The video will show you 7 steps, and you can start today even if you have no experience and you're a complete beginner. It'll cover the basics of UX design, including what a UX designer does, what a user interface is, and how you build digital products using the user-centered design process. Then we'll cover what UX tools you'll need and which ones are best for you, like Figma, Sketch, and Adobe XD. Scott, when you see stuff like that, what do you think? What do you want to say to all the juniors out there or future hopefuls who look at that and say, "Oh wow, I should probably take that guy's course. That's going to get me, I am going to be a UX designer at the end of this course."
I think firstly, it's what is their intention? Is it because they, have they just been maybe misguided and trying to do something for the industry, which is great. And, we want to build people up, not break them down. But there's also that critical thinking of, there is definitely over the last kind of 3-4 years, people applying for jobs, calling themselves UX UI. UX UI is not a thing. It's 2 skill sets that you maybe have experience in, but being a UX UI doesn't exist. And I know that the industry needs to get better at names. I know we need to understand what we call ourselves and how we explain ourselves. But when you get yeah, but when you get things like this, which is do this, 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 and this, and you'll get a job, is that really going to happen? If I go and buy a lottery ticket, will I go win the lottery? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I think, Debbie, you and I were talking about, getting a car. If you get a degree or qualification from a boot camp, for example, it's like getting a car. You may know how it works. You may know how to turn the key, start the engine. Do you know how to drive? Well, you might naturally really feel comfortable behind a wheel. You might have, some experience. In the UK, I don't know what it's like in the States or in Italy, is you have never been on a motorway until you pass your driving test. You don't actually go on the motorway as a learner. So
in America, I had to drive around. The roads of Amityville, New York, where the famous Amityville horror house is.
Wow. Yeah. So in the UK, you don't. So you pass your test, you have a license, and you have a car. So are you a seasoned professional driver? No. Are there other things you can do? You can go do Pass Plus. You can go do an advanced driving course. I worked for Royal Mail as a postman when I was at university. I went and did an advanced driving course to drive a big van. So that made me a better driver because I at the time needed to do that. So It's always those things that, how can you improve? How can you grow? Just because you know something or fundamentals doesn't mean that you're, a professional or experienced in them. It means you have a aptitude or opportunity. But saying to people, or people thinking that they can just go and do a couple of things and that makes them qualified, is a dangerous. I know, Debbie, you had a great one today talking about hairdressing.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, now, since you said it and you said it in a British accent, I've got Monty Python in my head where they go, hairdressing is so important. If you don't keep your scalp clean, you get rabies. But that's an old Monty Python.
I'm not going to say it.
What? What are you going to say?
No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to.
Oh, no, don't say that. I've just said it. But yeah. Today on LinkedIn, I was posting about how to be a hairdresser, or in America, they call it cosmetology school. You have to go to school usually for 9 months to 2 years. And then after that, you have to do, in some cases, 2,000 hours of practice, which would be 50 weeks of 40 hours a week, in order to get your license. And then at that point, you are starting your career in the profession after what might be years of training and practice, technically like an apprenticeship when they say practice. So I don't understand why UX doesn't have more of that model. I think it's working for hairdressers. And I don't understand why we say, oh yeah, just take 12 weeks of coding and UI and UX and you're going to get a job. I can't say everyone's lying to you, but I feel like everyone's lying to you.
I think it comes down to, you have to be around, what am I going to get out of this? Anything you do, whether it be a boot camp, go into a day seminar, go into any kind of event, a course. Why are you doing it? What are you going to gain from it? And how will you know if you're successful? That critical thinking that we've talked about, in business, we talk about KPIs, we talk about how we measure success. Well, how are you going to measure success for yourself and whether or not it was worthwhile? There are no bad decisions, but there are new opportunities to learn and to say, actually, that was good, that was not so good. And I think it's a very tough thing to do, to be self-critical, to say, did I do the best thing? Yes or no? Did I learn as much as I could? Yes or no? How do I progress? How do I continue? And I think, yes, it's great. And obviously there is intention. You want to get a job. You want to change your career and do something after doing a degree or a boot camp or a class or an apprenticeship, whatever it may be. But are you ready? And again, like we had a great question earlier about how do you know when you're ready? I think it comes down to confidence, aptitude, and experience. And when it's all said and done, it's actually a case of, well, you are starting. I think you always got to remember that is you're not the finished article, even though you have a portfolio. Portfolios are never complete. No matter how experienced you are, there's always a new case study. There's always new exciting things to talk about or show. There's always some great stuff. So don't polish your portfolio. It should be in a nice, presentable way, and you'll completely, continue with these things. But you have to consider what do you need to do and why are people offering certain things.
Yeah, just to read a couple of chats in a comment in the chat room and just warn people I have to end a little early tonight, so we've got 3 more minutes. Any questions have to be short lightning versions and ask them now, and I'll just read out some comments. We've got Ralitza in YouTube saying, when I read these things, it reminds me of those motivational speakers that tell you how it worked for them. But that's all BS, because even if you do all those steps, you're still not them. They have their own skill set, which may or may not have anything to do with yours. And we have a sneaky surprise guest in LinkedIn who's usually in YouTube. Larry Marine says, I've never understood why driving schools focus so much on backing up and parking. No one ever got killed backing up or parking. I think a lot of UX schools spend so much time on things that won't really matter once the driver gets on the road. And over in LinkedIn, Ashley McNeil says, boot camps are definitely a moneymaker for these companies, but it's also the job of the student to know they must go above and beyond the curriculum. Even with a degree, your undergrad experience outside of the actual degree can largely impact the type of job you're able to attain. Thanks to everybody for those comments and smiles. We are almost out of time, Scott, so I would say last words from you, and also where everybody can find you and follow you, and if you are taking on mentees right now.
Yeah, I think ultimately what we're talking about is you're not the finished article. Keep growing, keep learning, be critical of yourself in a fair way, audit your skill set, learn, keep learning, find people, and just enjoy the journey. This is your career path. There are steps to your path. Enjoy it, just embrace it. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter, although my Twitter's more about American football and West Ham. A little bit about UX, but it's a good combination if you're into your sports. But yeah, I have some availability if anyone is interested to message me. But I'm always happy to review portfolios and CVs, or just have a conversation. I like to be challenged, like to discuss things. I'm still learning. Hopefully I can learn from people as well.
Excellent. And Vishal says, thank you so much, Scott and Debbie. Well, mostly Scott. I'm so happy that you're back, and hopefully we'll do this again before next year. I'm going to have to run. I'm sorry, everybody. A client booked a call in 5 minutes, and so I've got to go put myself together. Thank you, Scott, again. I hope we'll see you soon. Everybody find him and hire him and mentor from him. Sorry, mentee. Do everything you can with him. I've got to run. I'm going to play us out of here. And thanks again, and see you all soon. Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.